The promise of openness. Open-plan offices were not created by accident. They were designed with intention, optimism, and a belief in progress. Walls were removed to encourage collaboration. Doors disappeared to increase transparency. Private rooms were replaced by shared space. The office was no longer a place of isolation, but of openness. At least, that was the idea. What followed was one of the most widespread workplace experiments in modern history. Implemented rapidly, globally, and with remarkably little long-term evidence. Today, open-plan offices dominate corporate environments. They are presented as modern, efficient, and human-centered. They signal flexibility, equality, and innovation. Yet despite their prevalence, dissatisfaction with work environments has steadily increased. People report lower concentration, higher stress, more fatigue, less meaningful collaboration. This contradiction is not coincidental. It is structural. The origin of the open office. The open-plan office emerged from a reaction against rigid hierarchy. Traditional offices symbolized power. Corner offices signaled status. Closed doors enforced separation. Removing walls was meant to flatten organizations. Everyone could see each other. Everyone shared the same space. Everyone appeared equal. The design carried moral weight. Openness was framed as progress. Privacy became associated with secrecy. Silence was mistaken for disengagement. What was lost in this shift was a critical understanding of how humans actually work. The confusion between visibility and productivity. Open offices prioritize visibility. Managers can see employees. Teams can observe one another. Activity is always on display. This visibility creates the impression of productivity. Movement is mistaken for engagement. Presence is mistaken for contribution. Noise is mistaken for collaboration. But productivity is not visual. The most demanding cognitive work produces few external signals. Thinking looks like stillness. Problem-solving looks like inactivity. Focus looks like absence. Open offices struggle to accommodate this reality. Cognitive work requires protection. Deep work depends on uninterrupted attention. It requires sustained mental effort, internal processing, and freedom from interruption. Open-plan environments remove these protections. Conversations bleed across desks. Footsteps signal movement. Phones vibrate. Screens flash. Voices rise and fall. Each stimulus may seem minor. But cognition is sensitive. Attention fractures easily. Context is fragile. Mental state takes time to rebuild. In an open office, the mind is constantly pulled outward. Interruption as the default state. In traditional offices, interruption was an event. Someone knocked. A door opened. Permission was requested. In open offices, interruption is ambient. It does not arrive, it exists. The brain remains in a state of vigilance, anticipating disruption. This has consequences. Even when not interrupted, people work differently when they might be interrupted. Focus becomes cautious. Thinking becomes shallow. Risk-taking declines. The mind adapts by avoiding depth. The myth of spontaneous collaboration. Open offices are often justified by collaboration. Ideas will flow freely. Conversations will spark innovation. Teams will connect naturally. In practice, the opposite often occurs. When privacy disappears, people become more guarded. Sensitive discussions move online. Complex problems are postponed. Conversations become superficial. True collaboration requires psychological safety. That safety is difficult to maintain when everything is overheard. The rise of defensive behavior. In open offices, people adapt defensively. They wear headphones to simulate privacy. They communicate through messages instead of speech. They seek empty rooms or work remotely when possible. These behaviors are not resistance. They are compensation. Employees rebuild the boundaries that architecture removed. Noise as cognitive pollution. Noise is not merely annoying. It is cognitively expensive. Speech is especially disruptive because the brain automatically processes language, even when irrelevant. Background conversations hijack attention. Working memory degrades. Error rates increase. The mind cannot easily ignore human speech. Open offices expose employees to constant linguistic interference. The energy cost of being observed. Being seen changes behavior. People sit differently. They move differently. They work differently. Open offices create a state of continuous social exposure. This consumes energy. Even when no one is watching, the possibility that someone could be watching alters behavior. This phenomenon is subtle but exhausting. Equality without equity. Open offices present equality visually. Everyone shares the same space. But equality of environment does not create equality of work. Different roles require different conditions. Some tasks require collaboration. Others require isolation. Some benefit from noise. Others collapse under it. Open offices impose a single environment on diverse cognitive needs. The result is inefficiency disguised as fairness. Productivity theater. Open offices excel at one thing: performance. They encourage visible busyness. Typing. Meetings. Movement. This creates a culture of appearance. Employees learn to signal productivity rather than pursue it. Deep thinking becomes risky. Silence becomes suspicious. Stillness feels unsafe. Stress without awareness. Open offices increase stress quietly. Not through obvious pressure, but through constant stimulation. The nervous system remains partially activated throughout the day. There is no true recovery. Fatigue accumulates gradually. People leave work tired, not because they worked intensely, but because they were never allowed to disengage. The hidden trade. Open-plan offices trade efficiency for optics. They look modern. They feel dynamic. They photograph well. But they often undermine the very outcomes they claim to support. Closing reflection, Part 1 ending. Open-plan offices were built on good intentions. But good intentions do not override human cognition. To understand why these environments persist despite their costs, we must look beyond design, and into incentives, management culture, and the psychology of control. That is where this analysis continues. Part 2 examines how open-plan offices reshape behavior, communication, and power, often in ways organizations never intended.